This is CityCast Twin Cities. I'm Sean McPherson, and here's what the cities are talking about. We are running an election of our own, and congratulations, you are the mayor of something in your town. Winter, what are you the mayor of, and what's your catchphrase?
Sean, I think I'm the mayor of having a terrible sense of direction, but still trying to get wherever I need to go in the fastest possible way. And my catchphrase would be, I'll get there eventually.
All right. How about John? What are you running on, and what are you the mayor of?
I am running on bedtime is at 8 p.m. And my catchphrase is, no, seriously, go to bed for my 4-year-old, because this is my daily campaign I do every single night.
I am the mayor of, you can put dog poop in anyone's garbage. Like, we don't have the right people in office yet, but it should be allowed to just, if I got some dog poop, I can put it in your garbage and we should be all good. That's my take.
I need to get you on my Facebook community group, because there are going to be some fiery messages to that opinion.
Yes, I again, the world is not ready for it, but I am ready for it. I am tired of carrying around this dog poop. You're hearing this on the day after the election, and there's still plenty of votes to tally, a lot of choices to rank. But we were recording this on Election Day, and we want to make sure that you check out another episode that drops this afternoon with our contributor, Tane Danger. Right now, though, we're going to do a little prognostication. We're also going to run through the veto history of the veto VIP, the incumbent Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. And we're also going to find out how Big Dairy is scamming you at the grocery store. I'm joined by John O'Sullivan, creator of 1 Minute Tours. Thanks for being with us, John.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're also joined by CityCast contributor Winter Kiefer. Welcome back, Winter.
Thanks, John. Great to be here again.
All right. So on voting day, I was so excited that I actually ran to my polling location. It was not super far, and I felt like I'd just be better than all my neighbors if I actually did the running. And then I was overwhelmed by nervousness, which I always feel when I'm in a polling location. Like, I can't answer questions that I normally could. I feel like I'm going through customs. Winter, when you're in your polling place, are you cool as a cucumber, or are you kind of on edge doing the civic duty of voting?
You know, Sean, I'm pretty cool about it, I think. I don't know. I enjoy the energy of it. I like seeing all of the folks who are volunteering. So I don't know. I voted this morning and I was pretty at ease.
John, what's your vibe when you were voting?
Oh, I get really into it. I feel like we live in a society that is like a democratic cancer of all of us at our homes. And it's this one place where you actually have to go to a physical place and mark a piece of paper. So I actually haven't voted today because with my family schedule, it's really important that I bring my kids with me because I want them to see it. It's what my parents did for me. So I get a little bit of single bald eagle tear down the face when I go to my polling place.
I guess I'm just out of my wits when I'm voting. I was behind my neighbor, Stephanie, and I think we both went to the wrong place. We could not remember which side of St. Clair we lived on. So we get there and we're like, MCP for the last name. And they're like, you're not allowed to vote. And then I just had to cross the hallway. I got through it, but I was tense. Now, I know we're in the middle as we record this of Election Day. Any feelings right now about how things are going? I mean, at this point, it's really just guesswork, but a lot of us have checked social media. John, do you have any sense about the vibes of this election day?
Every person in politics that I've talked to, which is admittedly a very small fraction of the general populace, has said since the beginning that there's no chance that the mayor doesn't win re-election. There seems to be just this acceptance that that's kind of what's gonna happen. That said, those people represent such a small sliver of the population. I think we'd be lucky if half the city knows there's an election going on.
And right now, you're talking about the Minneapolis election specifically. Do you think that?
Is there another one?
Oh, my dear Lord, John.
I don't want to talk about suburbs like St. Paul.
Listen,
wow.
We need a 2-minute tour about that one. But again, if you aren't in favor of the University of Michigan, you will be again in my good graces. But do you think the incumbent has a good shot on the St. Paul election? Will you think Mayor Melvin Carter will remain in office?
Yeah, we here in Minnesota seem to be pretty supportive of the incumbents in this cycle, it seems like. So I've spoken to both Mayor Frey and Mayor Carter on my podcast, and they just seem to have a machine behind them, right? There seems to be this unstoppable momentum happening. And while they have some insurgents who are riding the wave of what's happening nationally with a lot of the Zoran Mamdani DSA sort of candidates, I don't know that there's the same level of momentum going here with the challengers.
It's also worth mentioning that what we actually see on voting day is just a part of the picture. In Minneapolis, more than 9% of eligible voters have already voted. That's the highest early turnout, except for the 2021 election, where it was a touch higher. So there's a lot of folks who have made their decision days in advance, and we wouldn't really be able to test those vibes. But speaking of testing vibes, John, through your work on your podcast, you interviewed the 4 major candidates in Minneapolis's mayoral race, and you actually overturned a fact that I had not read elsewhere. Mayor Frey said that this is the last time he'll run. And I actually did not know that. Do you believe that, John? And if so, do you think that makes him more electable if you get the sense of like, oh, well, let's not change horses in the middle of the stream. His work will be done after this term. Do you believe it? And do you think it's a good position?
I don't believe it just because I don't think any politician in their right mind would say anything other than something humble about the future for themselves and all that. Everyone finds a way out of it if they want to run again. I believe it just looking at the big picture of the board, like someone has run 3 terms, like it's time for them to try to go for higher office if they want to stay in politics or get out. But yeah, I thought it was breaking news too when he said it on the podcast. I didn't really see anything written about it. But I think that the 2 things that are going to influence this race more than any one issue, number one is money. Mayor Frey has a PAC behind him, which has brought in $10 million, which is way more than anyone else in the race. But number 2 is ranked choice voting. So the normal way that we have a sense of oh, is this person going to win or not goes away. The Mayor Frey, when he first became mayor, the first round of ranked choice voting only had 25% in support of him. And so I said that most people I talk to say that they think Mayor Frey is going to win re-election, but I think a lot of people are thinking in a very zero-sum sort of mindset. With ranked choice, it could really be anything.
I would say also it's a big election because of the strong mayoral system. This is the first election since that was adopted via referendum. And so, I'm not sure, again, how many people are necessarily aware of that switch, but it's pretty major. And whoever's elected to mayor and council will certainly continue to have to adjust to what that means for the city.
Now, we will be getting some more information with hopefully some more updates about what is actually happening in these elections later this afternoon with our contributor, Tane Danger. But Winter, you have a unique view of election days. You've covered a lot of elections in your work as a journalist, but you also make yourself available to friends and neighbors to get out to the polls. And what have you been up to so far on election day, and what do you think the rest of the day holds for you?
Definitely. Well, I've been doing more freelance work and then also driving Uber on the side lately, which I think is kind of a fun way to meet people out in the wild outside of, city flax. But again, it's been relatively quiet today. What I find is if I get up really early and I start driving people around, they are not ready to talk about voting. And so am I. So that's been relatively slow, but I have had a lot of people reach out, a lot of former colleagues reach out and ask questions, especially about, where are people having watch parties? What's going on with that? I know, for example, there'll be a lot of the progressive city council candidates at Fate's watch party for mayor.
I'm always reminded I didn't go to journalism school when somebody uses the word flack. What does that mean in that sentence?
Sure. I mean, it means essentially the, PR person for the city, right? And so a lot of times you have to go through a PR, a public relations person to reach a public official, or a lot of times a candidate, a campaign manager in this case, right? So say, the Star Tribune just coming out with a large profile piece on major mayoral candidates. And a lot of people have pointed out that Omar Fateh was not included because he didn't respond, but they're reaching out to Fateh's campaign flax. So that's what I essentially mean by that, is just that you're reaching out to the middleman.
Is that true? He didn't respond? Because you actually said earlier, Sean, that I interviewed all 4 candidates. I actually didn't. I invited all 4 major candidates on, but Omar Fateh didn't arrive on the day of the interview. He no-showed, and I got a call 15 minutes later from his campaign. So it's interesting that there's another example of media that has had the same experience.
Yeah, he didn't respond for the Star Tribune roundup.
Huh.
We want to hear from you, or if you're fancy, from your flack. We want to find out what you experienced on Election Day. Send us a text or leave us a voicemail on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline, 612-217-0637. There's more news to discuss, but before we do that, we are going to take a quick break. Right now, we are tallying up the votes for Minneapolis mayor. Of course, we're not actually doing the tallying for those votes, but we are doing some tallying of a very, very active veto history from the incumbent mayor, Jacob Frey. In the last couple of years, he's put on almost 20 vetoes, and the day is young. There could be another veto today, and we're going to get some more information about these vetoes, and we have the perfect person to talk to about this. Winter, you wrote a story back in January for MinnPost about Mayor Frey's history of vetoing city council ordinances. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Mayor Frey has the record number of vetoes for a sitting mayor. The thing about the current council as it stands is that it does have a majority of progressive members. So they actually have the ability to override his vetoes with as long as they have a majority of 9 votes in the override vote. In 2024, the first year of this current council, because again, the Phyllis Kahn rule, they've only had 2 years on council. Mayor Frey used his veto power 8 times. And that was a record, a 1-year record for that. And then 4 of those 8 vetoes were overridden by the council, which a really high profile one, for example, was the rideshare ordinance, which ultimately was, and this had to do with Vate, was quashed by what's called preemption when the state upped the rates for rideshare drivers. But originally that was overridden, the veto that Frey put in place there.
That was like veto on veto. Like just everybody's like, I'm talking to my mom. I'm talking to my mom. And somebody's going to go, okay, we're changing it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, Winter, that like the ground beneath Mayor Frey changed in a couple significant ways as these veto numbers went up. And the 2 that I gleaned the most significant are this progressive bloc that's strong enough to be able to override vetoes. And then the fact that Mayor Frey became a strong mayor. There's in different municipalities, there is strong mayor, weak council, strong council, weak mayor. And people sort of deridingly say, like, R.T. Rybak was like a cheerleader. Mayor Sales Belton was like a cheerleader. They had a lot less skin in the game and a lot less power. Mayor Frey campaigned to change that and succeeded. Now it's a strong mayor, weak council, yet they still seem to be at odds. Can you talk about the progressive bloc and about the changes when Mayor Frey became the strong mayor?
So essentially, what the strong mayor system means is exactly what it sounds like. It gives that extra strength to the mayor, which had formerly been the council. I will say, St. Paul is a strong mayor system. A lot of times these larger municipalities are strong mayor systems, but it is a major change, especially in regard to things like the police department, these major departments in the city. And a lot of what you see with the vetoes is Mayor Frey talking a lot about his city staff and their recommendations. A lot of times you talk about, say, city managers, things like that in the strong mayor system. Then on the council end, we also have a strong council simply by the numbers of council members who are aligned with each other. So having that strong progressive majority that includes a few swing votes, but having that and having those potential 9 votes to override a mayor's veto sort of balanced out that power dynamic. And I think that is notable in this election as well, because we've only had 2 years of that, but it has led to some of these contentious passages, then vetoes, then sustain or override. But one could also look at that as a balance of power too.
I think the vetoes are an interesting symptom of a root issue in our city, which is that no one agrees anymore, like in the city council. right? There's these two factions that have emerged in the city council recently, and it's deeper to me than just the structural strong mayor, weak mayor system. It's like people don't talk to each other at the council level. Like I reached out to the mayor's office after his veto of the funding for the homeless shelter back last year. And my question for the mayor was, hey, when was the last time you talked to the city council president who you're kind of in opposition to in this fight? And I got a 2-page typed formal answer with letterhead on it, which had lots of words that ultimately said it's been a long time. And when I had Latricia Vita on, who's a councilwoman in Ward 4, she said they eat lunches in different groups. It's like they don't talk to each other in passing. This collegiality that existed under R.T. Ryback, for example, like that's long gone. And so like the veto is an expression of like a deep core problem with this city council.
I mean, it mimics what's happening at the national level. I don't want to act like if R.T. Ryback was leading in 2025, it would be all good. Like there is more to fight about, in my opinion, and there is more clear entrenchment on the sides at every level of government. So, I mean, I feel like we would be really exceptional if we didn't have some level of strife relative to most city councils and mayors across the country. You mentioned that you got this big ass letter from Mayor Frey on letterhead. I would bet $250 that the word not was in the first sentence, because this man loves to start every statement with not. And I'm being inflammatory because I'm sure he starts many statements with not. But Winter, you went right to Mayor Jacob Frey and asked for a response about why Frey does all these vetoes. And can I read a little bit from his response in your story from InPost, Winter? Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
He said, progress is not about checking off resolutions just for the sake of doing so. Real progress means enacting ordinances that are not only well crafted, but that will have a lasting positive impact on the lives of Minneapolis residents. John, you talk about people not eating lunch together. What would be wrong with just hacking off that first sentence? And you just start by saying real progress means enacting ordinances that are not only well crafted, but that will have a lasting positive impact on the lives of Minneapolis residents. I just feel like the dude takes pot shots whenever he can before actually making his point.
Yeah, there's definitely an element when you hear him speak of like he has a style, right? And I even think of his posture. Like he has this very erect style with his hands on his hips, this like jutting gesticulations that kind of jut his fingers and his hands out. But to me, it is not the work of, look at me, I'm doing his style right now. It is not the work of the city council to just make speeches. It's to actually get in the room and debate. You said something I don't think I agree with, which is like if R.T. Ryback were there today, he'd be dealing with the same stuff. I don't think that's the case. I think that the people in this city council right now are like uniquely unrepresentative of the Minneapolis way. The Minneapolis way is like being across from your neighbor in the alleyway and being a bit irritated about their dogs that they don't get to shut up, but you live with them and you invite them over to the backyard anyway. Like we are in the Midwest here. We are a kind of town. We're a small city, right? Like, and it feels like that in everyday life. But you go to city council and these guys have failed us. And across the board, I think they've failed us in the way that they don't do what we do in our everyday lives of just like talking to each other when we're taking the garbage out. Right. And so this thing about the vetoes and the letters and statements and all that, it's like mimicking this national political conversation that doesn't feel present, I guess, in my day-to-day life in South Minneapolis.
I think that's so interesting, John, because I'm from Michigan and I've covered small city councils from everywhere in West Michigan to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to, for 3 years, Flint, Michigan. And I covered Flint Council. And that council was an average of 6.5 hour long meeting. If anybody knows who Eric Mays is, I know some of you do, you'd understand. But even after he died and it changed the makeup of the council, a lot of people thought everything would go back to being cordial, and it didn't. And I just think that it's such an interesting conversation to me, because I like to say, as somebody who's covered Minneapolis City Council and St. Paul City Council, that Minneapolis fights in public and that St. Paul fights in private. And I'm not sure which is better. And so I think that there's an element of that argument that is sort of fundamental also to just the practice itself. And I'm not saying it's always good and productive. It's just not surprising to me that there are these fissures after covering so many councils and so many fissures.
I think it's interesting. Like, I appreciate your Windsor for like comparing it to other municipalities in this country, because I don't have that experience. I came back to Minnesota after 13 years overseas, but my frame of reference for this is how government works in Australia and in the UK, where I lived prior. And there's something, when I say something maybe uniquely un-Minneapolitan, what I mean is uniquely un-American about the way our politics is working right now. Right? It's this factionalism, this way of, it's only in politics where we just resolve to call the other side evil and don't talk to them ever again, unless it's in a public speech, like criticizing them. Other countries that I've lived in, there's like a sense of collectivism of like, oh, we don't agree, but let's get stuff done. Let's get in a room and work things out. And it's just something that's lost in this current environment that we have in this country. It drives me crazy.
Sure. I would give one example of the Minneapolis City Council where that maybe there's a little more unity than you would think. I actually think Jeremiah Ellison and Latricia Vetaw had this one really interesting moment within the last year where they kind of were joking with each other on the political aisle. They're on two different sides, right? And Latricia Vetaw was joking with Ellison about how her mom lives in his ward. And they kind of had this little joke like, yeah, my mom hates you, but it was in good faith. It was sort of a moment of them trying to talk about that exactly, that they need to be able to discuss things across the aisle. So I do think there's a level of at least, some of that happening.
That's something that maybe that's what I'm getting at, is this ability that we've lost to disagree in good spirit in public. That's like a really human moment that all of us go through at Thanksgiving dinner with the uncle who says something we disagree with. I had it on my podcast recently. I had someone I disagree profoundly with, Liz Collin, who did the documentary, The Fall of Minneapolis. And in the moment, I kind of asked her, hey, is there anything you like in Minneapolis? What do you like about Minneapolis? And she struggled to answer the question. She went back and forth, and I think she saw it as like a gotcha question. And so I just said in the moment, like, I'm not trying to do a gotcha. I just I want to connect with you, like as people, like we're sitting here, we both lived in Minneapolis, like you used to, I do. Like, what do you like about the place? And I just want to connect with you. And she goes, oh my gosh, John, I'm sorry, we're not connecting. I'll have to try harder. And she was doing the same thing that you're talking about, Winter, that those council people did, of having a lighthearted moment of like, oh, we disagree, but we're still people who see each other's common humanity. Until we find a way to get that back in a bigger scale, I don't know how we're going to address the problems at city council or going all the way up in our politics.
John, I know you spent some time overseas, and Winter, I know you were raised in Michigan. I want to commend you both on using the Minnesota-specific form of the word interesting, because I believe you both used it to mean, I mainly disagree with you, but I don't want you to key my car. So I want to say that that's well done. And I think you guys are ready for long careers in politics, because if you say, like, frankly, if Mayor Frey opened some of his stuff going, that's interesting, and then said what he actually thought, that would be better than not. So sometimes it is actually useful to use the Minnesota form of interesting. And I commend you both for pulling it off well.
Yeah.
We want to know what you think. Were all these vetoes necessary? Do you think there's a climate change that we could use in the world of Minneapolis politics? Give us a call, 612-217-0637. You can also shoot us a text at that same number. We will be right back. It might seem like a big zag to go from municipal elections and vetoes to milk, but actually the cost of milk is front and center when so many families are navigating their food budgets. Conrad Zibikowski from Racket read the label and found out some interesting things about the price of milk in the Twin Cities. It was utterly fascinating.
Oh, God.
Thank you so much. We'll be editing that one out. Winter, have you ever had a glass of milk that was notably better than your average glass of milk?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more what goes with the milk. Like a glass of milk with a chocolate chip cookie is notably better, but is it because of the cookie,
And I would pay for a price difference if this gallon of milk came with a chocolate chip cookie. But I understand that you find most milk to be pretty equal no matter how you're having it. John, have you had a superior glass of milk in your day?
Oh, this is going to be terrible for me because I'm going to sound so unpatriotic, but Australian milk is worlds apart from American milk. There's the American processing of the pasteurizing makes it, all uniform and similar, but over there you get the cream in the top of it, has this richness to it. It's a night and day difference.
Well, good for you, Mr. Australian. I think that the temperature of milk, it makes an incredible difference, but we're not talking about milk temperatures in this article from Racket. We're really talking about milk prices. Winter, did you know what the bottling code for Minnesota milk is? So if you see a particular 2-digit code on milk, you know it's actually made in Minnesota?
I did not know that. Nope.
No idea what you're talking about.
No one would know this. I had no idea what those printed out digits were besides for the expiration date. But if you see 27 on your milk, that means it was made in Minnesota. And then there's even some more codes that will often tell you where it's created. And a lot of the milk that this guy went around and picked up all around the metro area comes from one particular spot in Northeast that you pass it when you're on Broadway. It says Kemp's. It used to be a clover farm, but they've been making milk here for a long time. All the milk comes from the same place, but the price ranges are very different. For the same milk, and this is whole milk, thank God, you are getting $2.16 to pay for a gallon of milk on Aldi, the one in Phillips on Franklin. And then you're going to go all the way up to $4.95 for Kemp's Select at Hy-Vee. John, do you think there's any defense for this level of price difference?
No, I mean, these are commodities in the same size jug, same style, same shape, everything. The sticker kind of looks different if you get different brands, I guess. But we're so far removed from the era of the milkman and the deliveries coming in from the different farms where you can trace it. Why would there be a different price in the same city, in the same sort of grocery store?
Okay, I'm going to have to step up and defend Big Milk, and I'm happy to do it. When the label looks better, that means perhaps the graphic designer's work cost more and it is more appetizing to see that milk. So I'm just going to say that the actual appearance of the milk does have some value. Yes, you might be tricking me, but I might want to be tricked. I might want to open my fridge and see a joyous set of colors and a joyous design that makes me want to do it. Also, I'm no big supporter of Aldi because I feel like my wife, at least half of the spoiled food she brings home comes from Aldi. I know a lot of people love Aldi. They don't give you a cart, okay? You got to figure that stuff out on your own. So if somebody goes, yeah, the milk costs more at Hy-Vee, but we got a cart for you. I actually feel like it is not just this out and out, oh, the prices should be the same. It's the same milk. There's a lot more that goes into buying milk. How close is this to your home? How convenient is it? How is the graphic design? It still feels like a scam when you go fundamentally, I'm buying a gallon of milk and there's a huge price difference. But I just don't think that they should all be $2.75 or something like that when there is different things that go into how much rent they're paying for the spot they're doing. What hurts me is that the biggest problem in this milk thing is not tackled in this article. These expiration dates were largely similar. What I see is that if you ever have to go buy milk at Walgreens, you have a matter of minutes before it goes bad. If you are ever trying to buy milk at like a gas station, it should come with a clock. That's how close to expired a lot of it is if you're not going into a grocery store. All of these were within a handful of days of each other. And it's easy to get some jokes in and things like that. I feel like you really get duped when you buy milk and then you find out that you have a day and a half before it goes bad. Do either of you play milk roulette and risk having some bad milk if it's past the expiration date?
Oh, I grab from the back of the fridge. When I'm at the grocery store, I go all the way to the back to get the one with the farthest out expiration date. I don't get conned by these guys.
I risk it. I do the smell test. You just kind of give it a sniff, see if it smells like it's okay, like sip it a little bit. And then if it's actually sour and you miss something, don't go for it. But yeah, I do it. I'm a gremlin.
Can I share one non sequitur milk thought just while we're on milk? Which is I have such a nostalgia for the carton the milk comes in from school, like the school lunch milk. So it was in a little cardboard thing, and you have to you'd like kind of tear the paper open, and you have to do that kind of paper airplane trick where you have to get it to open up in that little like triangular opening on there. I think the milk was better from that, and I would support going back to cartons, knowing nothing about the environmental impacts of that, because it's just so satisfying to open milk that way.
One of the rudest things I ever said to my mother was, she was a substitute teacher in our elementary school, and I was struggling with those cartons that you remember so fondly, John, but it was beyond my mechanical skills as a fourth grader. And I said, my mom was just working the lunch as a sub. She wasn't there as my mom. And I go, will you help me open this milk? I'm struggling. And my mom goes, Sean, I got a lot else to do. I said, you should have thought about that before you had kids. And I cannot believe that she's in the middle of her workday dealing with like a difficult lunchroom. And I made her regret, choosing to have me, some 8 years ago. And I'm very glad that she did not end my tenure on planet Earth at that very moment. But you can have all your fond memories of milk cartons, but I am moving forward, baby. I'm in the Pyrex era.
I think you need to reflect with your therapist on your language of that. You said that she wasn't your mom, she was a substitute there. So it seems really deep seated for you, that this feeling of rejection for your mother in the lunchroom. I think you might want to work through this.
There is a comma in the amount of money I've spent with my therapist trying to work out my issues with my mom. So we'll get to milk one day, but there's some bigger fish to fry. That is all for today here on CityCast Twin Cities. I'm your host, Sean McPherson. Winter and John, thank you for joining me. Winter, great to have you with all this political stuff. Thank you so much.
Absolutely great to be here.
And John O'Sullivan from 1 Minute Tours, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to the CityCast Twin Cities newsletter. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with a monster who prefers skim milk? We'll see you back here tomorrow for more news from around the city.